Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist with degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy, and a national certification in integrative mental health. In this video, I'm not looking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Hello. Welcome to Sunday. Sunday. You guys know 74% of men prioritize personality over looks. This was done in a dating survey. So that's like 3 out of 4 men prioritize personality over looks for a long-term relationship. So, spoiler alert. We're going straight into it, right? We're going to talk about why the trope, okay? But first, let's say hello to some people. Adric is first. That means it's going to be a great show. You know what I mean? Like, he's first. Look at that. It's on. He was ready at 9 a.m. Look at that. He was ready at 9 a.m. Nina's here. She's saying hi, my favorite auntie with the peace sign. Hey, Leon. Thank you for being here. So glad to have you. Chef Mike is here. You know, I have to know what's for supper. So you got to tell me. He's telling everybody good afternoon. Adric says, let's hear it for the dancing Maggies. I can't do it, but that's how I hear it every time I read it. Hi, Cynical Optimist. Thank you for being here. He's saying peace to Maggie and the chat. Adrian is here. Thank you, love. Nick Morrison says he's number 6. Listen, hit the like button. You know that I will forget to ask you to do these things. So, you know, it's like, let's just put it up right up front, because I will get so into what we're talking about, I would totally forget. So hit the like button. Somebody can put my Cash App in there. You guys know I'm trying to save up for that Keys to Enoch book so we can go through it. It'll be great. Okay. Leon says, yep, because looks cost money. So as long as she's cute and takes care of herself and has some personality, she's a pick. 10s, the majority of time, do not have personality. You know, sometimes people rely too heavily on their looks, and so they don't really go into self-growth or, you know, develop those kind of things. Chef Mike said he's going to the beach for a barbecue and a bonfire. Boy, doesn't that sound nice. Adric says, at what age does personality become important? You know, that was something, I can't give you a specific age, but we all know that when boys and girls go through puberty, you know, all those floods of hormones affect boys and girls kind of in the same way. You know, they are in their root chakras and their sacral chakra. You know, they're all about it. You know what I mean? And I think, you know, for me, a lot of times if a person is in their ego, then they're going to be attracted to people who are also in their ego. You know what I mean? But again, the dating survey says 74% of men prioritize personality for a long-term relationship. Now, short-term, we all are going to prioritize what makes our tummy tickle for the short term. I mean, let's just be real, okay? So, dating culture today is just filled with misinformation, with like memes, with viral TikToks, with all kinds of things that say that men are shallow, right? That they're they only chase after looks, that they ignore deeper connections. And I'm sorry, I've met a man before. I get that that's not the case, right? So, or that it's only men that do these things. So let's look into, are men as shallow as people make them out to be? Okay. Y'all know I have my notes right in front of me. They're typed this time. Answer. All right. So the common perception is that men only focus on looks, like the trophy wives, and you go through a midlife crisis and you trade your wife in for a 20-year-old hottie, or being a sugar daddy, all of those kind of tropes are there. Even the passport bros, which before they were called passport bros, they were called the military. Let's just be real. People brought home young, beautiful wives from areas. And, some of us are like, maybe you wanted young and beautiful. She wanted money and to live in the United States. It worked out. But honestly, if you've met people in situations like that, you'll see they actually love each other. It's very interesting, right? Because it's all very tropey. Okay. So we have these tropes, and so we assume that the dating standards revolve around beauty and youth and nothing else. And sometimes if you hear the more private conversations or locker room talk of men, they do talk about youth and beauty, right? But is that their thing for dating? You know what I mean? Or if they got youth and beauty, but she was dumb as a rock, are we still with it? I mean, can you trust her? Do you feel connected? You know what I mean? But again, if people are in their ego, that might be cool. I just realized I need to write something down, because if I don't write it down, it doesn't happen. Okay. Leanne says short-term relationship depends on the person when it comes to personality, but it does reflect in those sexual relationships, in my opinion. Yeah, it's whatever makes your tummy tickle. Adric says sugar daddy is overrated. I would assume so. I have never had any inclination to be a sugar mama in that way. So. Leon says whole family is military, and there are a lot of expat in my family tree. There's a gnat in here. Okay. BGS says, do most women develop a personality that men find attractive? That's I think most is a big number. Most. I think we live in an age of people are very hyper-focused on their ego. We live in the age of social media. And so people are sort of trained right now to be forward-facing with everything. Like, think about what goes viral. It's not Ram Dass and self-growth. You know what I mean? It's not things that make you think. It's none of that. It's all very Mr. Beast, and beautiful, beautiful, limber young women and tall, dapper men, like that's doing whatever they do, right? It doesn't matter. People are very ego focused, Adria says, like Kanye, I have a huge ego. Yeah. Yeah. So I think, we look for people who are going to complement our life, whether we're doing it consciously or unconsciously. The hope is that you do it consciously so that you're actually picking well, because if you're doing it unconsciously, then there's a lot of societal expectations. You have to do this and this and this with this person in this way, in this order, and then you find yourself miserable. And then you're seeking conversation and other things outside of the house because you followed all the expectations, right? Or it's based on your own internal biases, you know? Like, I would never date this person or whatever because I'm not supposed to or something. I guess it all kind of goes back to expectations. Um, so you guys have seen comments like men only want to date models or looks are all that matters. And really, it paints men with a pretty broad brush, right? That the only thing they want in a long term relationship is pretty. And I don't know, I've heard fit, feminine, and friendly, and pretty is not in there. I've also heard a lot of conversations from men that, you know, nines and tens in that, that rating system, which I still can't figure out. I think it's innate to men to know to pick the numbers and be, pretty close to each other. Um, I think anyway, they will say things like nines and tens are not necessarily who you go for a long-term relationship, right? So is it really the case? I mean, it can't be if that's the conversation. So let's kind of go into what influences these perceptions of that men are shallow and only want to date models, right? There's only so many models. You know what I mean? So societal expectations, that's one. Hollywood films to Instagram, you know, influencers, all these, it pushes a narrative that physical appearance is everything, especially for men, right? Like it's a lot with women, but it's gotten better. There's more representative of every facet of how women look in the media. But for men, what's considered attractive is, the tall, dark, and handsome trope. I'm still not quite sure if the dark part is like, if it's skin tone, if it's like features like hair and eyes, or if it's like a characteristic like broody. I'm still not sure what the dark part is. So I don't know, probably different for each woman. But and then we have like dating apps, you know what I mean? And it's the swiping, the constant swiping. You have to base your initial impression on looks. People can only show so much personality in a dating app profile pic. There's only so much you can put out there. You know what I mean? So there is some instant looks. If a woman looks pretty, then he's going to attend to that. But even though that's the first glance, you know what I mean? That literally science says that is not what men prioritize. BGS says they take advantage of archetypes. Oh, that could be. Yeah. Are you looking for the mother? Are you looking for your own, your own shadow? Um, I say things like, whether it's friendships or anything, like, I want our inner children to play well together. So I take advantage of archetypes as well. But um, if we look at dating apps or like this initial attraction thing, men will say they value looks initially, but we all do. Women and men alike. You have to. You have an initial reaction. As a side note, this is why I say don't worry about what other people think of you, because we all have an initial response to anybody we see walking down the road, walking in the grocery store, walking into work, and they're not always kind. And I wouldn't want anybody to know my inner thoughts, so I don't need to know anybody else's because the intent is different than the initial thought. Hi, God's child. Thank you for being here. Oh, calling me a very lovely lady. Thank you so much. Yeah, BGS says men are far more pragmatic about dating and marriage. Well, I think when you look at the differences, when we look at 74% of men value value personality for long-term relationship, I think you can see that, right? Because they're thinking long term, they're thinking pragmatically. And we're going to kind of get into that, like, what about the personality? You know what I mean? Like, what specifically? So, when it comes to forming relationship, factors like kindness, intelligence, and compatibility weigh much heavier. Kindness, intelligence, and compatibility. Mm. We've kinda hit on 2 of the fit, feminine, friendly. Uh-oh. You've got the initial attraction of fit, right? And one person's fit is another person's fat, and one person's fit is another person's skinny or too short or too tall or whatever. People kind of set their own view of what is fit. I think it generally, in things that I've read, and I didn't write any of this down, so I'm not gonna source it, but I think generally, as far as women are concerned, um, well, no, I will reference it. The waist to hip ratio, right? So there has to be a waist to hip ratio, right? Um, for some women, you can see it more from the back. You can see the more waist to hip ratio. Um, for some women, you see it up front. Um, some men like a more waist to hip, a little tiny waist and big hips. Some men like a little less, you know, but that generally tends to be that initial fit reaction. BGS, ew. Okay, so let's dive into the science, right? Let's go into the science. So research in psychology and biology gives us insight into what drives men's dating preferences, which I'm going to talk about waist to hip again, right? It's not as simple as looks over everything, right? Like super shallow and any hot woman can steal your man. That's another trope, right? That you don't want your man around gorgeous women because she'll take him if she wants him. That's always the if she wants him, right? So, according to evolutionary psychology, men are biologically wired to prioritize traits that signal fertility. So this is part of that initial reaction, okay? That includes looks, right? But it's definitely not the standard of European beauty because every man has his own preference, right? It's But when we look at science, when it says what signals fertility, it's round hips, full lips, and rosy cheeks. That is the signal of fertility. Round hips, full lips, and rosy cheeks. So generally, that's going to be considered more attractive to men because it signals that innate instinct of fertility. So that's that initial attraction. Okay. Educated lames for Trump. Hi, thank you for being here. Says Maggie. What is women's perception of bearded men, and do they prefer bearded or clean shaven? Um, I don't think there's like a specific answer. Some women like beards, some women don't like beards. Um, there is, again, like BGS talked about, there's archetypal things, right? So women generally, just like men, have an archetypal preference. Okay. And so since I don't want to speak for every woman, I'm going to talk about one that I do know about. And some people call it the manly man, and some people call it the lumberjack. Some people call it the teddy bear, but there is a label in LGBT, men as being bears. So, I tend to not go, uh, into the teddy bear one, although I do say teddy bear, and when it was man or bear, I was like, I pick Wyatt because I like teddy bears. But anyway, women will tend to have an archetype that fits with their natural inclination. And so if we say lumberjack or manly man, um, these are men who probably do have a beard of some kind, be it a close shaved goatee all the way to like long beards, right? But these are men who tend to be like broad shouldered, um, strong, maybe a little soft in the middle, but could kind of like him and three other guys could move a car. You know what I mean? That's why they call it lumberjack, but that's also why they call it teddy bear because it's like, the big strong arms and the scruffy beard and the soft middle because he eats biscuits and gravy in the morning. So, but they look like men. When you're talking about the manly man or the lumberjack, they look like men. They don't have feminine features in any way. Do you guys know that actor Machete? Like he would fall into that category. Now, it's kind of an extreme end, but that's that very manly man. Looks strong, right? Looks fierce, but kind of soft in the middle. And I don't just mean has a little tummy. I also mean like if you get to the ooey gooey center, he's just a little teddy bear. He's just so sweet and big hearted, right? But the outside is, don't F with me or I'll pick up your car and put it in the lake. Hopefully that makes sense. So that was a long explanation for that. That some women are gonna love it and some women are gonna hate it, you know? Adrian says waist to hip ratio. What's interesting is the evidence of this, even going back to some of the earliest examples of art history, i.e., full hips. And you say art history, and it's interesting because we went in European art, not just European art. In art, when we talk about like fertility goddesses, but also in like paintings and things, there's periods where it's like obese women, right, are like the symbol, right? They kind of have a belly, but they have big full breasts. And even with the big full belly, it will be depicted in a way where you can still see, that waist to hip ratio, the big hips, the thick thighs, and this is the model of fertility, right? So it's interesting that you said that. Hi, Louis Conyer, Red Pill Sleeper Cell is here. What's up to you? Hi, Indigo Flow coming in with the flowers. Glad to have you here. Leon says, Maggie, I am weird. Oh, please don't cry about it. I looked at women in my 20s like this. After she gave birth to 3 babies, she'll be 5'1" to 5'3" and around 156 pounds. Yep. I see her and I together. Well, I mean, I hope you understand that 5'1" to 5'3" and around 156 pounds is a size medium. So that's kind of what that's a size medium. And isn't medium should be the average, you know what I mean? Because it's medium. It that means she might be a couple points beyond her BMI, maybe into the overweight range, but that's still a size medium. Okay. Hi, Azir. Bye. Thank you for being here. I hope I'm saying that right. Is it bye or B? They say probably because it's all about beauty and service after that. Yeah. Cynical optimist says pudgy. I don't know if you're talking about the men that I was talking about, but you better watch it. Leon says that's my type. Adrian says Venus of Willendorf. I don't know that particular one, but if you put a link in the chat, that would be great. If you get the opportunity, that would be great. Okay. So again, studies show emotional stability, loyalty, and shared values are equally, if not more, important in long-term relationships. Okay, so we're kind of going back to that being pragmatic. That comes from a book from 1989 called Human Mate Selection Criteria. And then there was a study that was done on it by Finkel and Eastwick in that was also in 89. And then in 2015, there was an article that came out called Modern Relationship Preferences. Again, all of that shows that what people value as equally, if not more important than being sexually attracted to somebody is emotional stability, loyalty, and shared values. And I think we can all agree with that, right? Especially for long-term relationships. Educated Lame says, speaking of obese women, do fat women produce more estrogen, the female hormone, than women who are fit or in shape? You know, so let me tell you why I'm thinking so hard about this. Because estrogen can be stored in fat cells. Okay, so that's one side of it. But then the other side of it is estrogen causes breast cancer. Okay, so you don't see, you don't necessarily see more obese women with breast cancer. However, you will see if men become obese, they can get breast cancer. So I guess my answer is it's possible that they have more estrogen or at least more stored estrogen. Maybe not so much in their bloodstream, but I would say it's possible. Okay. Cynical optimist says pudgy ladies and husky dudes. Perfect. No, oh, thank you, Adrian, for putting that. Venus of Willendorf. I assume it's probably a statue or a painting that kind of is depicting what I was showing. Leon says it's hard to calculate, but estrogen from birth control leads to higher risk of cancer. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not necessarily that women get breast cancer just by being a woman and having estrogen. It's that if the estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are out of balance, meaning if you're taking birth control and it's an estrogen birth control, then that's why they say your risk of breast cancer goes straight through the roof. Most birth controls nowadays are progesterone based because we tend to, the society that we live in, we tend to be a little lower than we need to be on our progesterone. So taking progesterone birth control doesn't cause near the effects that an estrogen based birth control does. Educated Lame says, so that would mean that fat women are more feminine than fit women. Well, I think we have to talk about what feminine is then, because if we're talking about that the waist to hip ratio and full lips and rosy cheeks and those kind of things are the initial attraction kind of at an instinctual level, then feminine may have less to do with that initial attraction and more to do with a vibe or an air of how a person moves and operates. We generally think about feminine being a little softer, a little more nurturing, a little less, not a little, but less conflictual, less abrupt and forceful and things like that. We tend to view that feminine archetype as very nurturing and loving and empathetic and sweet and kind, you know, peaceful, caring. So feminine probably has more to do with the vibe or the air about a person than it does necessarily with the initial instinct of mating, because we're all animals. Um, oh, Adrian says that the Venus of Willendorf is a 30,000-year-old faceless sculpture. So that's been our representation of fertility, right? Not beauty, not necessarily beauty, but fertility. It's giving us the exaggerated example, right? Which is why it continues to be what is shown for fertility is the wide hips, the waist to hip ratio, those kind of things, that body, the big full breasts, that is fertility, right? Leon says body shapes are cultural or social ideas and what represents fragility. That could be. Who was it the other day said know your letters, and then they listed letters, and I'm like, what is that? And it's body shapes. It's like capital A, capital H, V, X. I don't remember what all of them were, but I'm like, now I can see it. And then I look at the letters and I'm like, oh, I see body shapes right there, right? Hey, Alexis T is in here. Thank you for being here. I haven't seen you in a long time. Stopping by to drop a like real quick. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Okay, so a study published in Psychological Science found that while physical attraction plays a role, as it does for everybody, men's preferences often shift as they seek meaningful connection. Okay, again, like I said, it's short-term versus long-term for everybody. Qualities like mutual understanding, emotional intelligence, and long-term partnership potential start to outweigh superficial aspects. So wait, this article means to tell me, the unmitigated gall of this article to tell me that men were requesting emotional intelligence a long time ago, way before women were? What? And men knew what it was? What? Because we know that's a trope too, where women are like, just be emotionally intelligent. We need men to lift their emotional intelligence. Well, that's what they seek. Mutual understanding, right? The three things: mutual understanding, which is good. I understand you, you understand me. Perfect. Emotional intelligence. I can manage myself and manage you. You can manage yourself and you can manage me, right? And long-term partnership potential. Are you a person who wants a long-term relationship? Are you a loyal person? Would you be faithful to our commitment? Are you in it for the long haul? Or insert all the other things, right? That outweighs the superficial aspects. Okay. So are men's dating standards shallow? The truth is, men, just like women, are influenced by a mix of biology, personal experiences, and societal pressure. Okay. So physical attraction matters. Honestly, you're not going to start looking for mutual understanding and emotional intelligence and long-term partnership potential if you're not attracted to the person. And yes, there are specific things that play to our instincts. But then we all have preferences beyond that. As an example, I talked about the waist to hip ratio. Interestingly, what affects women instinctually is being musky, It's the smell. And women will be like, "Oh, you stink, blah, blah, blah." Break up with her. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But what studies have found is that men visually are, what is that word? Ooh, I'm gonna have a hard time wording right now. Activated. Whew. Men are visually activated for that instinctual. Women are through the nose. The nose is what activates our instincts, and it's pheromonal. And so there's this really cool study that was done where men of all different socioeconomic, racially, size, just this wide, diverse group of men, right? They all wore white t-shirts. They all went and worked out, and then they hand over their t-shirts. Now, what's interesting is they were testing. I don't remember what they were testing, but they had taken blood samples from every one of the participants. This was through a medical field, not psychologically. Okay. But what ended up happening was they put these t-shirts on these like dummy chests, these busts, and women came in and smelled each one of the shirts and then rated how funky it was. Did it smell bad? Was it terrible? That or was it, it's kind of nice. And what they found was the more genetic diversity there was, the better the funky shirt smelled. And the reason why that's important is because if you don't get enough genetic diversity, then you end up with like birth defects and things like that. You end up compounding genetic disorders and stuff like that if it's not diverse enough. And so women are activated to mate through they smell, they bring in the pheromones, and it gives them genetic information about I should, make a baby, want to have sex with this particular person. And so, ladies watching, if you think that when your man is sweaty, that he is stinky, then it's possible. But we're also taught that it's stinky. You know what I mean? And nobody likes like 2 days of no showering. Like that's just funky. Then you're smelling bacteria. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about dirty. I'm talking about the way sweat smells, right? Because pheromones are concentrated in sweat. Olfactory. Thank you, Indigo. Man, I'm having a hard time wording. Leon says, in my opinion, when we take a look at traditional roles where men utilize labor, I would say some women lacked emotional intelligence to their husband's issues. Bring home the bag. It's your duty. Yeah, that's where we get into those like societal expectations. Like I'm supposed to marry somebody who looks like this and acts like this from this area of town or from these specific families or whatever. And then we're supposed to, we get married and we're supposed to have babies and, she's supposed to stay at home and watch the babies and they're supposed to go to school and they have to do this and you go to work every day and you come home and turn over the money and, and you do that until you're exhausted and then you retire and a year later you die. Like those are societal expectations. You know what I mean? And so when we do things out of societal expectations, anything at all, we're just creating misery for ourselves. Cynical, look at you using these words that I'm going to have to think about it for a second. Subsumptive. So would subsumptive mean like below surface level? So subsumptive He's gonna have to explain that. Attractiveness versus superficial attractiveness. Yeah, okay, so beauty's only skin deep kind of thing. And we have all met people who, when we first meet them, we're like, "Meh," or we're like, "Oh, not so much," boring or whatever. And then the more we get to know them, the better looking they get because their personality is amazing, right? Maybe they're hilarious. Maybe they are just practically the sweetest person you have ever met, and they just become angelic in your eyes. Yeah. Olfactory. Adrian had me to olfactory. I'm like, the nose. You know what I'm saying? You smell it. It's olfactory receptors. Thank you. That the pheromones come in, and it literally, she's reading your DNA by smelling your sweat. So think about it. We live in this day and age where, we tell people wear deodorant. Of course, we're outside working hard and getting funky. And by the end of the day, if we don't wear deodorant, we are going to smell like bacteria. By the way, it's the bacteria that stinks. Just throwing that out there. It's the bacteria. When the bacteria sits and starts to grow, that's when it smells like a dead ass. But sweat itself isn't stinky. It isn't stinky. Adrian says, so the royals from back in the day all smelled alike. Got it. Well, that is societal expectations, right? You marry your cousin because we have to maintain this bloodline and this family line and this monarchy and this, lineage type thing, right? So it's societal expectations. And at that point in time, husbands and wives weren't expected to have a relationship, like to be friends or have conversations, or it was a business, right? So two families merged. The families decided the two families merged to maintain the bloodline. They had sex to have children. And then both the husband and the wife went off and had love relationships with others. This is why you have so many bastards in the royal lines, because the monarchs would father children with multiple other women, but because she wasn't in that same bloodline, they're not considered royal. Indigo says subsume. I know I was having a hard time. Sorry, guys. Leon says, I forgot what book I read it from. The topic took place in, I think, the 40s and the 50s. Wait, I'm having a squirrel moment because now I'm like, what book you took what from? Oh, about bringing home the bag. Yeah. Cynical optimist says nature. Assuming the nature of. Okay, kind of like I'm taking a look at you, I'm around you a little bit, and so and kind of your natural qualities or how you naturally act. I like it. Okay, so again, mutual understanding. This is the most up to date, right? Mutual understanding, emotional intelligence, and long-term partnership potential are what men prioritize for long-term relationships, right? So that saying you can't make a particular lady of the night a housewife, that plays into the long-term partnership potential, right? It's just another way to say that. And to warn other men, you need to look at the long-term partnership potential of a woman, right? You need to look at, like when somebody says intelligence or how smart she is or whatever, that is subjective to each person who's having the conversation, but that plays into mutual understanding, right? Nobody wants somebody really far off of their intelligence level, because then how are you having conversations? Right? What are you talking about? You're not even going to have similar interests. And then obviously emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is essentially the ability to know and regulate your own emotions and know and regulate other people's emotions. That's what emotional intelligence is. And if you're looking for a woman to raise children and to be in long-term relationship, obviously you're going to prioritize emotional intelligence. Oh, cynical says exactly. Okay, thank you for helping me with that word. I like it. I may use it again. Subsumptive. Dig it. All right, so are men's dating preferences really shallow? The truth at the end of the day is men, just like women, are influenced by biology, personal experiences, and societal pressure, just like all of us. So biology, we're going to have our instincts. Our own personal experiences are going to kind of guide what, our preferences. I like brunettes. Why do you like brunettes? Well, because brunettes have always been nice to me. And societal pressure, or people telling us what we can and cannot do. Physical attraction matters, but when it comes to like the serious relationships, which I'm talking about, not the short term, the serious relationships, men prioritize personality, emotional connection, a shared value system. But I kind of think at the end of the day, what's good for the gander is also good for the goose. So I hear people giving Fit Feminine Friendly a rough time, and they're saying that it is superficial. Although friendly is not so much superficial, and again, feminine is a vibe. So if that is too superficial, then she can't say tall, dark, and handsome, right? Like women will say things like, he needs to be tall. What is that? The 6 6 6 6 thing, whatever that is, right? Very, very superficial. I mean, at least with men, they have the feminine and the friendly part, which is subjective to whoever's looking. With women, it's what is it? 6 feet tall, 6-pack abs, 6-figure salary. And then in the ladies' locker room, there's another 6 that's in there. You guys can think about what that is. None of that has to do with a vibe or even being kind or nice or, it's be tall, look good, and bring money. Like, that's terrible. Right? So women, Fit Feminine and Friendly would be like saying healthy, masculine, and kind. And isn't that something that we all want? Fit, feminine, and friendly, healthy, masculine, and kind. It all sounds great to me. So the next time somebody tells you that men only care about looks, remember it's not simple. It is definitely complex. Dating standards for men and women are far more nuanced than we give them credit for. And again, it all comes down to personal preference. So for both, looks get you in the door, definitely. But you could look like a troll to one person and be the hottest thing walking to another. So, but for some people, their looks get them in every door, and that's okay. But what men truly want is understanding. They want emotional intelligence, and they want potential because they want to sustain. If they're going to invest in a long-term relationship, they want someone who will sustain a long-term relationship. And that doesn't sound shallow to me at all. I don't know. What do you guys think? Made it all the way through my notes. Look at that. Almost an hour. Okay. While you guys are putting your thoughts in the comments and replaying, I want to know what people think about this. I really do, because it's such a trope. And I read all of the comments. But while you guys are doing that, I'm just going to let you know some upcoming stuff. So this coming Wednesday is going to be a biggie. It's the 3 imperative questions upon emergence from the Matrix, or when reality is not real and you kind of wake up to that. What are the 3 most important questions you have to answer? I really want to get that out to people. And as on Wednesdays, if you guys haven't watched, so on Pivot Point Wednesdays, there's a presentation of a topic. And then we move into something called Let's Get Weird, where we get a little weird with it. With that topic, we might go a little woo-woo or a little more into quantum physics or things like that. So this coming Wednesday for the Let's Get Weird, I'm going to share with you guys a conversation that I had with ChatGPT about this topic. I mean, it was a little mind-blowing. Of course, some of it had to do with the initial question that I asked, but and then also on Wednesdays, then we roll into a section called Tinfoil Hat, which to call someone tinfoil hat means they're looking at like government conspiracies and things like that. So for the tinfoil hat section, we're going to look at someone named Edward Bernays, who first brought us the concept of propaganda. So this coming Wednesday is probably going to be a bit longer, but it's going to be super interesting. I know you guys are going to like it. My live tribe, especially, you guys are going to like it. And then next Sunday is going to be the philosophy of absurdism. And it's a specific philosophy called absurdism. So we're going to talk about that next Sunday. The following Wednesday is going to be turning pain into power. So hopefully you guys are into that. Appreciate it so much. Leon says, the exterior image can be feminine or masculine. And sometimes I believe people work on that part of themselves and not the internal self, feminine or masculine. They look the part. Yeah. It's a little more egoic, they're doing it for ego. So I totally get what you're saying. Hi, Ian. I'm glad you were here. Hi, God's child. Thank you for being here. Okay. Oh, I actually remembered to look at the Cash App. Whoop, whoop. Okay, nothing there. Okay, so hopefully you guys can be here Wednesday because it's going to be a bit longer and it's going to be a bit mind-blowing. I mean, the whole thing. The initial conversation about what to do upon awakening or emergence from the matrix, I think is really important. And then moving into the Let's Get Weird, and the tinfoil is just going to be wowza. And then the philosophy of absurdism, I think you guys are really going to like next Sunday. So, okay, one more comment. Leon says, then literally how can a woman that labors not to be in poverty and maintain middle class perform feminine the same as a woman born in middle class? Class plays a part. Again, I think it's a bit of a number one. I think it's a bit of a vibe, which means it's resonating from deep in. Secondarily, something I've talked about in doing self-growth and shadow work is that you have to balance your inner feminine and masculine. And then women tend to, and again, I'm not going to play to the margins, so I'm going to say it this way. Women tend to, it's not a 50-50 balance, because women are going to be more feminine even when they're in balance, right? Men are going to tend to be more masculine when they're in balance, because that is who they are, okay? So with it being, you don't want your masculine and feminine out of balance. I mean, you might think, oh, I want someone who's purely feminine. You don't want that. She's never going to speak. I will guarantee you she will never open her mouth, because the feminine side of us is very nurturing and empathetic and non-confrontational and things like that. She's not going to speak. You can't ever like have a difference of opinion and kind of debate through a topic. And, she's never going to tell you when something's wrong. You just got to find out later. And how frustrating is that, right? Like, you don't want that. When you're in balance, you can go into your masculine energy as needed, and then kind of go back to your homeostasis, your set level where you're a bit more feminine. So, I could, not that I would want to, holy God, but I could go work at a factory all day. And I could be wearing blue jeans and the same work shirt with my name, on a patch on my chest, and getting dirty and greasy and cursing at parts that won't move right and not wearing makeup and having safety goggles on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? But then when I come home, I can um, I can balance myself. It's just like even somebody who is feminine maybe leads a little bit more with femininity. If she is in balance and there needs to be a confrontation, or she needs to advocate for herself, she needs to do something that's a bit more forceful, she can tap into her masculine energy, do that thing. It's just sort of like you shouldn't unpack and live in your masculinity. I'm hoping all that makes sense. And God's Child says people have a difficult time with yin and yang. Yeah, yeah. It's the balance, right? The balance is so hard. It's so hard. But we know women who have unpacked and lived in their masculinity. They've unpacked and lived in their femininity. We know men who are unpacked as 100% masculine, and men that have unpacked and they live in their femininity. It's like, that's why balance is so important. So, all right. I hope you guys have a good rest of your Sunday. I hope to see you this coming Wednesday, but if not, I will see you next Sunday. So I'm going to show you guys a picture of my dog. Please like the video if you haven't already. It really helps the algorithm to know what kind of things you like. Share where you think it's appropriate, especially to someone who you think needs to hear it. And don't forget to check out some of the wilder Pivot Point Wednesday shows. And last, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to break down complex concepts that make the esoteric not so teric, helping you on your journey to become your most authentic self. By subscribing, you'll join a community that thrives on curiosity and growth, and you'll never miss out on insights and some wild discussions. Let's uncover the universe together.